Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today I'll be playing through each game in the Stalker trilogy and focusing on the main story. I'll also be talking about the gameplay evolution, graphical enhancements, lore implications, and a whole lot more. Now, these are separate retrospective videos edited together, albeit loosely, for your viewing experience. If you'd like to watch the individual ones, the links will be down below, with my other Stalker lore videos. Over the course of the last 2 months, I have played through and documented my experience with Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, and Call of Pripyat. I'm excited to share my time with you. Hope you enjoy. Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today, I'll be doing a retrospective on Shadows of Chernobyl, the first in the Stalker series. Oh boy, let me tell you, it holds up in some of the best ways a game can. And it's not just about those sweet, sweet artifacts in the north of the zone. I had not played Shadows of Chernobyl in a very long time, but I still had vivid memories of the Agroprom Underground, meeting your first controller, and some of the most iconic gunfights you'll find in a video game. Shadows of Chernobyl has so much to offer, even after 17 years. But for this retrospective, we're going to be focusing on the main story. Whichever Stalker you play, the main character is the Zone. If you're interested in the Zone itself, check out my lore video if you have time. But for now, I believe Shadows of Chernobyl does the best at leading the player in, yet having a deep rabbit hole to fall into. And the developers definitely wanted us to fall into said rabbit hole. So let's oblige them. If you know retrospectives on my channel, that's my cue to go into that vat behind me and hang out with some like-minded people. Talk soon. All of this will be from the eye, or my personal experience and opinion about the game. Whoa, creepy face. I like how the game opens without any dialogue about where this truck is coming from or why it's transporting seemingly dead bodies. The only thing we get is from the guy who found us calling it a death truck and saying the person is marked.
What have you got?
A body. It came from the death truck. It's got the mark.
Well, you know the drill. Leave him on
This is a live one.
Bullshit. You are lying.
Let the Zone take me if I am.
Sidorovich, this guy, doesn't believe it that there was a live body, which is a subtle way of saying, this is a rarity. I truly enjoyed this type of storytelling, and SOC benefits from its pacing. You'll be discovering lots of stuff, but not at the point where you think everything is being spoon-fed, especially later on in the game where it's up to the player to read off their PDA, but we'll get there. For now, Sidorovich finds a PDA saying, kill the Straylock, and our adventure begins.
So, Marked One, I saved you. And I'm not going to pretend I did it to win favors upstairs. You do some jobs for me, and we're even.
Holy god, I forgot about the graphics. Sidorovich, my friend, I'm glad they glammed you up later. Sidorovich informs us we have amnesia, and saving our butt wasn't for free. It's a great setup with how the gameplay loop works in SOC, or Shadows of Chernobyl, because you'll be taking missions left and right from various factions or people. It's one of the things I love about retrospectives, blending the story narrative with how the game functions, and I truly think SOC has this incredible balance between the two. Going out on missions, helping certain factions, obtaining your freedom from Sidorovich, all makes sense in the story side, and the gameplay hits so hard. The first mission is taking out bandits at some abandoned outpost. Without knowing anything about who these people are, why they're there, and realizing that you're woefully underpowered, It brings you into the zone nicely. I will quickly address the bullet damage based on difficulty. There has been a lot of debate whether playing on Master difficulty makes enemies and yourself more prone to damage, and the opposite for playing on Novice. I can confidently say, because I'm a baby and played on Novice, that humans died to headshots quickly if they had no armor. Even later in the game with proper ammo, you could be one-tapping most human enemies. What was different was the mutants, who I felt took even more ammo to take down, but that I can't confirm. We clear out the bandits and head back to Sidorovich. One thing that was added to Clear Sky the next game is the ability to fast travel with a guide. For certain situations, I would have really liked that, but for SOC, especially being the first game, you wouldn't be able to fully experience the zone. Whether that's the AI interacting in interesting ways, or just the ambiance of walking around in this alien reality, the zone is one of the most intriguing places you'll find yourself in. We complete the mission and Sidorovich explains that Strelok, the name on the PDA we were found with, is a stalker, and kind of an infamous one too. I say infamous because Sidorovich tells us that Strelok is rumored to have found a pathway to the northern reaches of the zone, which many people do not accomplish. Sidorovich also has an ulterior motive in all of this. The north of the zone is riddled with artifacts, special objects that grant the person holding them powers. They also sell for incredible amounts of money inside and outside the zone. Sidorovich and other traders, some we'll meet later on, want access to the northern zone for their own profit, but everyone that's tried has had their brain boiled, making Strelok's adventures into the north even more intriguing. He also mentions that some of his contacts have discovered important documents at a research facility called Agriprom, and tasks us to find it, but tells us not to bring it back to him, but his friend the Barkeep, or Barman. What a unique name. I also love how in this world that we know very little about at this moment in the game, it's all these small details that are adding to the atmosphere and tension. I hope I wasn't the only one to go, military documents? Grunts? Are we fighting the military here when I have some Ukrainian grandfather's shotgun? You can also ask Sidorovich questions about Cordon, the area you're in, which I really enjoyed. This is completely up to the player if they want to know more about the happenings around. You might be surprised what people will tell you. We sneak past the military checkpoint at the bridge and get a little phone call from Sidorovich explaining that one of Strelok's buddies has come back from a raid north of the zone and is in need of help.
A stalker by the name of Fox is coming back from a raid. Looks like he had a rough time and needs help. He came back with some type of critters all over him. He says he won't last long. He just might know something about Strelok. You got to go see him right now. Here are his coordinates.
It might be a little heavy-handed, but you get the impression that nobody does anything in the zone for free, except for you. We find Fox, and after defending against some dogs, he agrees to share some information about this Strelok character. Fox explains he actually has never met Strelok, only having encountered him when passing a ravine. I wonder if he meant the one by Lemansk. Anyways, Fox says Serie, his brother, is in garbage and would be willing to talk to us about Strelok. I'm guessing for a price, so we make our way there. While we head north, I want to highlight one of my favorite things in open world games, or semi-open world games: points of interest. You can do a lot with points of interest, especially when tying value through history or lore. Stalker not only does that, but you can see the zone through different time periods, which shows the shifting power dynamics. The game wants you to explore, especially having stashes as a main reward for completing quests. It's a great reason to go off the beaten path and stumble upon some incredibly interesting areas. We get to Garbage and come up to a stick-up. I really enjoyed these moments in SOC and forgot how many scripted situations there are, like these bandit encounters when you first enter the Garbage.
I've got nothing! Your cash and your artifacts. I'm quick, you asshole. It's the bandits! Help!
A lot of people like to talk about the AI in these games, and the openness of their choices have a huge effect on the atmosphere. I can also say that I enjoyed the scripted moments even more this time around, and I think I'm lusting for that mid-2000s linear FPS game like Half-Life 2. Anyways, we help these loners with the remaining bandits, and I absolutely love the early gameplay in SOC. The time to kill is so satisfying, you just need to play this, especially when you get the VSS during the late game. The AI in gunfights were pretty good, flanking when available, using corners and cover. I was pretty happy with each encounter, especially since you or your quest person can be killed very quickly. And that's a good thing, because I've played through all 3 games before starting the scripts for them, and oh boy, I never want to go back to Clear Sky. And we'll get there during that retrospective. So we defend against the bandits and come out with one of the loner's upgraded weapons, which I had never done before, and it stayed with me to the mid-game. Already, SOC's gameplay loop was addictive. Finding quests, killing bandits or mutants, looting everything. Plus you have these stashes I talked about right before, and there was no stopping this train. The only thing I would have liked is easier access to traders. There were so many times that I was in the middle of nowhere with a ton of good loot and no one to sell it to. And I really wanted to sell it because you can get exquisite armor later on with the right amount of rubles. We meet with Fox's brother and he tells us that a friend of his has found Strelok's stash in the Agripom underground. If you're asking if this is a breadcrumb chase, you're damn well right. Go along with it. It's something I'm excited to see in Stalker 2, the narrative they'll be going for, and how they want to incorporate the story. I'm always a big fan of simple story, detailed worlds. But I digress. We go to Agripom and are confronted by some loner telling us the military is sending in some helicopters to kill off everyone.
Damn, that's a military air assault force. Our guys are there.
Including the person we need to talk with. I truly love the gunfights in SOC. They're one of the best parts in the game, and having squads of duty, freedom, military wiping each other out, and me just running around looting, it's amazing. The gunplay is visceral, the headshots feel hefty. I also enjoy the aftermath of firefights, since I feel like I'm William Dafoe in Boondock Saints screaming, "There was a firefight!" Another element that adds on to the beauty of the firefights is the aesthetic and areas you'll be fighting in. Whether that's the city of Pripyat or the abandoned research institute, I love that there was a verticality, ranged combat, and close quarters in most of these areas. We clear out the rest of the military and meet Mole, the person that found Strelok's stash. He tells us that he knows it's down in the tunnels, but can't give us a specific place. We'll just have to find it ourselves. And so starts the level that gave me nightmares for at least 5 months, the Agripom Underground. I don't know what's scarier, the light that's spinning or the sound it makes. We have to clear out some bandits first, and honestly, this is where the game goes. If you haven't died to random enemies, you will now. SOC does an excellent job with the power level that you'll be facing throughout the game, and you'll be finding better weapons and armors. And so will your enemies. These bandits having superior weapons to the ones we fought at first made me feel like I was progressing, not only with my character, but deeper into the zone and the unknown. Also, if you know, you know. Fuck this hallway. The mutant designs in SOC are great. Texture-wise, we're probably not going to get there. But the bloodsuckers going all cloaked wraith is pretty awesome, even if it still scares me to this day. We fight past some military and find Strelok's stash. If this was my first time playing, it would have taken me longer, but out of not wanting to be down in the tunnels for longer than needed, I memorized my way around. Coming up on the stash, we not only find a ton of great loot and ammo, but we find an interesting little flash drive. We gather the information on the drive, which leads us to the next breadcrumb, a person named Ghost. Apparently one of Strelok's posse, Fang, has died, and the message also states that Strelok has started his journey north. Ghost knows who to ask to follow him, and now we know as well. We fight through some more military and get to our second cursed hallway in the game. This is a controller, and they're pretty scary. Not only are they psychic, but they can control human minds, and if you've never played these games and are asking, what the heck do you mean they're psychic? What is going on? Why do people's brains boil in the north, or any of that? Don't worry, the payoff is pretty gratifying. We get out of the tunnels and have snuck into the military base. Now, there is stealth mode in this game, but I had no luck sneaking around, especially if one person sees you, the whole place goes into alarm. Honestly, the shooting was so much fun, I didn't care. We clear what feels like hundreds of military personnel and grab the secret document. I really hope there's something good on these bad boys. Next stop, Barkeep.
Whoever helps us push back this scum won't regret it. Duty word.
See what I mean by scripted events? I really think people don't talk about how cool they set up narrative lines through these events. Anyways, we fight off some boars for our new faction, Duty. They're a paramilitary force that isn't too keen about the zone, and that's another way SOC adds to the feeling of progression. If you just met all these factions at once like some job fair, they wouldn't feel special or distinct. If you're wondering, we're a part of the Loner faction, a ragtag group of guys that can range from novices to elite marksmen with allegiance to living. We've met the Bandit faction who seem keen to kill every loner they see, and we've seen the military that wants to do that to everyone. And now Duty. Duty in SOC has a base in Rostock, where the 100 Rads bar is, and our barkeep. You can ask some Duty members about the place and they'll give you some history behind it. Side tangent, I love the dialogue screen they have. It reminds me of Morrowind and in some way adds this different feeling to the game. We reach Barmen and deliver the secret documents. And oh boy, secrets do they have. After the barkeep goes over the documents, he reveals that there is some lab that gets talked about. Designated X-18. I literally shivered when reading this again. The plot was thickening and my nostalgia was not wrong. Unfortunately, the lab is locked by 2 keys. One the barkeep inexplicably has, and the other held by a person named Boar in the Dark Valley. Well, off we go then. Now, I don't know if you can get into the bandit base and just talk with Boar, do some missions and get the key peacefully, because the second I stepped foot on their territory, it was all guns blazing, which again, felt frickin' epic. We blast our way through the derelict factory, and even if I died a lot, I couldn't help but smile. It also helped that I had some good luck with artifacts this run, gaining the 400% health from a random stash and an anti-radiation one that was tremendous while traversing through the northern areas. We kill the bandit leader, obtain the key, and make a dash for the lab, which is underground another factory. Wow, you can see the infrastructure that was here previous to 86. I wonder why. So we gain access to Lab X-18 and oh boy, another nightmare-fueled subterranean Soviet adventure. Everything about the labs from the sound effects to the subtle music still hold up well to this day. And I was just flabbergasted. We encounter our next mutant, the Snork. Snorks have a great design, but kind of don't hold up compared to every other mutant in the game. Firstly, they sound like an actual tiger, which yeah, it's scary, but when you think about a tiger with a gas mask, I couldn't help but laugh. The second thing is their attack animation, which looks like the Australian breakdancer. That also made me laugh. After exploring for some time, we get the access code to the lower floors of the lab, which is filled with poltergeists. Poltergeists are like floating energy balls that can throw random objects at you. Honestly, on the scale of physics coding back in the day, this was really impressive to see objects being tossed around or picked up. Oh, hell no. Jesus, I guess they introduced us to a lot of mutants in this lab, which will make sense in a bit, but absolutely screw this guy. How is this enemy neutral? Anyways, we get to what hopefully is the final passcode and enter the main laboratory of X18. God damn, is this stuff cool.
Стрелу!
Teams 1 and 2, check the first floor. Team 3, the main hall. Teams 4 and 5, second floor.
We try to pick up the documents, but faint to a cutscene. Uh-oh, someone knows we're here, and they don't sound too happy about it. Whatever they were doing in this lab, we'll have to discuss it after we survive leaving. We finally escape, only to discover that the military has surrounded the factory and the bandit base, while also closing down the entrance to the garbage. There is another way, but we'll need to detour south. We arrive back in Cordon, the starting area, and Sidorovich tells us to swing by his place for a little chat about those documents from X18. He also mentions that the military is holding more sets of documents about Strelok's expedition into the north of the zone. They've conveniently held them just south of our very position. Also, I didn't realize, but if you attack at night there are less guards. That's why it's important to read. Another reason why it's important to read is you get so much more information off your PDA. I was kind of surprised no one was like, hey, check your PDA for more knowledge or something more graceful. I say this because I was questioning why I couldn't read the documents from my inventory and then remembered about the diary. The diary is a great thing for SOC and wildly missed in Clear Sky. It also adds so much to the mystique and lore of the zone. Honestly, if this is your first time here, you'd have no clue what the hell was going on if you did not read the entries of your diary or encyclopedia. Anyways, one of these entries is about Lab X18, but through our perspective, and the marked one remarks that current residents he didn't know existed. So your character is pretty much like, I have amnesia, I don't know who I am, and I don't know what the hell I'm seeing for the last 3 days. Damn, this marked one is pretty strong. The observation continues, citing something called Kamenov emitters and another lab, this one designated X16. After our moment with Sidorovich, we get back to the barkeep and hand him the documents. The barkeep explains that Lab X18, the one in the Dark Valley, was making components for some experimental emitter. He also says something about the brain scorcher. I guess that might be the thing melting people's heads. Barkeep also explains that the components were shipped to another lab, Lab X16, located in Lake Yantar, where some scientists have set up base. We pass by the wild territory and save some random ecologists. Ecologists are scientists that are in the zone to study and research anomalies, mutants, you name it. Usually they're on the good side of everyone, but this particular group gets shot down by mercenaries. After helping the ecologists out, we escort one of them into Yantar, but not before seeing the next strange enemy, zombies. I love how they just use the word zombie and not scorched or brainless, it's just zombie. We make it to Yantar and meet Professor Sakharov, who thanks us for escorting his ecologist buddy through the wild territory, but is kind of weird at first, like he knows us or something. Anyways, we just drop the piece of knowledge that there's a secret lab around this area and wonder if he can help us out. I really like the professor because you get this gut feeling he's hiding a bigger picture, but is still willing to help you and his research. Like how he says he's been interested in Lab X16 for a long time, which means he's known about it for a long time. Unfortunately, Sakharov informs us that we need some special protection to enter the area he thinks the lab is in, due to something called a psi field, which directly affects people's consciousness, hence the zombies. The professor does have a device he thinks could work, but it needs some calibrating, and thus we go on our little science experiment. After shooting a ton of zombies who are really into macro data, a blowout occurs, and we get a little cinematic where Fang and presumably Ghost are talking to someone.
We can do for you. The blowout is minutes away, we won't get through with you.
No, Fang, I'm not leaving him.
We've got to get out of here quick. I've got the measurements now, we just need to get back to the bunker.
Now, like any franchise, retconning or changing certain things happens, and I was confused here since I thought blowouts would cause you to turn into a zombie. How did the Mark I and the scientist survive? We don't have the device until after, right? Right? Let me know in the comments below if you have the answer. The professor now tunes the device and we have our defense against the psi field, if only for a certain amount of time. He also explains that we'll need somehow to turn off the emitter while we're down there, or we'll be toast, psi defense or not. The professor tells us that another group tried to access the lab before us, an ecologist and one of Straylock's posse, Ghost. The ecologist PDA frequency tells us that he's out from the underground, but Ghost is somewhere still there, and we're tasked with finding the ecologist's body first.
We've got all the papers. We know how to deactivate the source of the emission. Proceeding to dig into the lab with Ghost. Zombies coming out of everywhere. It's all screwed up. Ghost has gone insane. He must have been affected by the emissions. I've dropped everything, trying to get out through the tunnels. I'm at the swamp, but where's the bunker? Shit! I can't make out my whereabouts. No response from Sakharov. What's going on? Zombies everywhere. I'm running out of ammo.
Oh, that does not sound good. Now with the information how to shut down the emitter and the location of Lab X16, we make our way to another factory. I wanted to highlight the intentional bodies marked around here. They're unlootable, so you know the developers meant to showcase these guys. I just love the piece of copper sticking out of some random loner, the zombified corpses strewn around, and the amount of factions that look to have died here. Anyways, we fight our way through and end up in our third nightmare-fueled subterranean Soviet science lair. Oh yay! Lab X16 is where the boys become men. Not only are there a ton of enemies down here, but night vision absolutely is trash in this game, except for the one suit that has a nice bluish color to it, but makes an annoying sound. So, I was scared shitless because of the lighting down here, and give all the kudos to this game engine and their design work. We make it to the emitter and are timed to shut it down. I love the scale of this place, and if you've watched my Portal videos, I love the feeling of descending and ascending in video games. This set piece is definitely up there for that. I hope questions are swirling in your mind right now, like, what the hell is an emitter? Why would they build something like this? And is that a gigantic brain? Okay, Shadows of Chernobyl, you have me. What the hell is going on?
If this is so important, why didn't you explain what you are going there for? And where did you get this photo from?
If you only knew where I've just been and what I saw.
One day you'll finish badly, Straylock. Hold on, son. You're going to make it. Where will you go now?
To the north.
Oh, next weird cinematic. I don't know what to make of these, other than we have a face to Straylock now, and it seems we're getting closer to him. We have our next encounter with a controller, and oh boy, does that noise give me the heebie-jeebies. Just get ready for Stalker 2, because this stuff in modern day engines, oh, I really hope it knocks it out of the park. We dispatch of the controller and find Ghost's body and a voice memo. Ghost talks about wanting to find Straylock, but not knowing where he is, and wanting to find someone named Doc. I love the escape from Lab X16. You've probably had a very intense 30 minutes going through, and I thought this was the exit right outside. Nope. Another fantastic set piece for gunplay, and the visuals really lent themselves to the overall world they were building. I mean, how big is this place? For real, it felt big. We also have more helicopters, but this time they're working for the professor to try to clear out some of the zombies now that the emitter is shut off. Back at Rostock, we give the documents of X16 to Barkeep, who is very excited that we shut down the first of the emitters, and gives us coordinates to the Brain Scorcher. Now remember, him and Sidorovich want the Brain Scorcher disabled because of the profit they would both make through exploiting the factions and other stalkers. These traders haven't left their respective areas since they moved in, and as much as I love helping them out, I wish there was a way, somehow, to just tell them, screw you, pick up your own shotgun. But Barkeep makes up for it with some great lore if you ask him about something called the Wish Granter. This is from my playthrough, but he was the first NPC to have the option to talk about the Wish Granter, and it explains the legend of the monolith. So Chernobyl happens in 1986 and the area is condemned. Then in 2006, the zone appears for unknown reasons. Barman is saying that after 2006, the legend of the monolith was spread by stalkers like us, like an old wives' tale. The legend goes that one of the survivors in 2006, when the zone first opened, was trapped at the nuclear facility, only seeing a strange light coming from the sarcophagus itself, the overhanging helping dissipate radiation on the nuclear facility. The person went inside the facility and what he saw was a monolith, a structure that called out to him, presumably granting a wish. Of course, this got everyone and their gun-wielding babushka to chase after the legend, which Barkeep doesn't even know if it's real. All he says is the zone grows by 5 kilometers if someone makes a wish, which is information I have no clue how he has. Instead of going straight to disabling the Brain Scorcher, we have another lead on Straylock, finding Guide, one of the first stalkers. We convince Guide that we're a friend of Straylock's and he tells us if we're friends, you'll know where to find Doc. Without a compass, I would not have thought of going back to Agroprom. God, I hate this place, so many stupid creepies. Anyways, we go back to the stash spot and lo and behold, what's this?
Hey, Straylock. Straylock, come on, man, wake up. Oh, that's better. You had me worried. What the hell are you doing, man? Have you lost your memory or something? You were the one who suggested that we take this precaution. Oh well, at least you're still alive. Look, Straylock, we've got no time, so I need you to listen to me. Everything you have said about the monolith is true. All of it. It is just an illusion manufactured in a lab next to the sarcophagus. And nobody who reached the monolith has ever come back. Looks like they have died there. But anyway, while you're away, I dug up some more info. And basically, there is a decoder to open the door which leads to the monolith controls. And this decoder is hidden in a stash in Pripyat. Now I am going to give you the coordinates of this stash, and I'm giving you the key to open it. I want you to take the decoder, and I want you to find the door in the sarcophagus. And then you'll know what to do. But it seems that this is the only way of uncovering the zone's real secret. This is the one you have been trying to work out, Straylock.
Oh yeah, so that was a quick turnaround, having the monolith explained as some legendary tale, and then having Doc not only say that we're Straylock himself, the person we've been trying to find the whole game, but that the monolith is a fabrication and another secret lab is running this whole entire thing. Wow, okay, gives us an exposition dump and then leaves us on the ground? Come on, Doc. Doc does give us the coordinates to some decoder for a door within the power plant that he says will shed light on the dark secret of the zone. And honestly, I did not do this the first time I played back in the day. I think I went fully north after shutting down the first emitter and didn't even know this was a thing. Until I watched the cinematics a couple of years ago, I was confused why I had never seen the true ending. Oh, I almost said something I shouldn't have. Anyways, our next stop is disabling the Brain Scorcher. North we go. Now, for this playthrough, I only did a couple of side missions for Freedom and Duty. Honestly, I felt like Mac from It's Always Sunny, playing both sides. If I kept neutral, then both would help me fight mutants, and other things. Regardless, I'm excited to focus on the factions more in my upcoming factions video. I will say Freedom has more significant job defending what is called the Barrier. The Barrier, as Cap explains it, is the last line between the normal zone and whatever the Pripyat fuck this is. We face off against monolith jerks, as Cap puts it, and I think that's putting it a little lightly. Monolith, from my experience only in this playthrough, seem to have something to do with the monolith Barkeep was talking about. But if Doc says it's an illusion, who the heck are these guys? Again, the atmosphere is almost perfect, and I believe they do add weather to certain events like entering radar, but that's okay since, again, I'm a fan of linear storytelling and direction. We don't always need random weather effects in AI generation, but I digress. We fight through literally an army of monolith, some with RPGs, which, holy crud, very cool, but I don't like my armor getting damaged. We finally get to the Brain Scorcher, and wow, they have this place locked down. Oh yeah, these guys are crazy. They're definitely getting scorched. Okay, I'll see myself out. Again, the scope and scale of these levels are just fantastic. The sheer size of this lab gives me the shivers. Like, how much work did the Soviets put into all of this? These facilities are huge, and the feeling of descending into peril was so tangible that I had to take a small break before the next part. We turn off the Brain Scorcher and faint again. Jesus, Straylock, I think you need to see an actual doctor, not someone named Doc. The vision is a little bit more telling, showing us that Straylock has been to the center of the zone and has witnessed the monolith. But how did he survive and come back to the death bus, or whatever it was called?
What you want is here, Stalker.
Good questions. Also, whose voice is that? Is that the monolith? Anyways, another firefight ensues, this time feeling like old boy fight scene since the lab is so claustrophobic. I guess it's a trope of SOC to enter a building, escape, and then have the military or monolith chase after you. We avoid both and make our way to the newly opened north of Pripyat. Now, coming up is probably one of my favorite sections of any game. For myself, it's most comparable to the last couple of levels in Half-Life 2. As you come to understand, you know very little of the world you've been playing in. Getting to Pripyat is one of those moments where I truly felt like I had deserved this opportunity. Not only was I flush with sick artifacts, but we had a group of loners kitted to the nines. And oh boy, did we need them. Fighting through this long stretch of road with monolith popping out of every single building is something you have to experience for yourself, if you're into shooting games. Also, what the heck? Like, the details here with no loading screens is wildly impressive, and the aesthetic cannot be matched, since you can see what the zone has done to this place. Again, an alien reality. After fighting through a garage and dodging Gauze rifle shots, we make it to the hotel room and pick up the decoder Doc had stashed away. Or did he stash it away? Did he just know where it was? I'm so confused. We clear out the rest of the monolith, but for some reason have this cutscene in the stadium. Rather than fighting this out, which makes me so sad, it looked awesome.
Who's he here?
You can even tell I was confused since we teleport past the stadium and then get put into the next level, Chernobyl. So, by turning off the Brain Scorcher, we've not only created a path to the center of the zone for ourselves, but also for every faction. The military uses this opportunity to swarm the CNPP, and we have to contend with the military and Monolith. Luckily, we could run through most of the enemies and gun down a lot of them along the way. Welcome to CNPP.
Пришло время. Я вижу твое желание. Время. Я вижу твое желание.
Good God, that voice is something I will never forget. Somehow it's horrifying yet calming. Did anyone else feel like that? The music as well is so unsettling, with the radiation ticking uncontrollably and having to fight through congested corridors. This part is so worth the game. Like, this part alone. Trust me, you will feel like a badass. Now, I'm showing you what I assume most people did and go straight to the reactor because the quest has it designated, but we've done our due diligence, and we're going down this insane rabbit hole. We get to the door that Doc has told us about, and what the hell, they teleport in? Oh, Jesus. I love the standoff by the first door, and just getting the found secret lab made my nerdy side go wild. We were finally here. We fight through another platoon of Monolith, and what did I say about the VSS? This thing eats Monolith for breakfast. I was so happy with the bullet drop, the feel of the gun, the sound of it, and it begs the question, why did they change this for Clear Sky? Oh God, why? We clear our way to the room to discover that Doc was correct. The Monolith is being projected by some apparatus. Better just shoot these things?
Hello, Stalker. I see you have many questions for me. Well, ask them, and then we can decide what to do with you. We are the result of an experiment aimed at creating a super consciousness called C consciousness. The consciousnesses of 7 volunteers were connected during the experiment, leading to the creation of the super consciousness that is us. We immediately subordinated those who were conducting the experiment and assigned them to tasks we needed them to carry out.
Right? Oh boy, I hope you're ready for some lore. So, we talk with C Consciousness, who explains that there is an energy sphere around the Earth called the Noosphere, which they wanted to manipulate, or as they say, for the betterment of humanity. Yet, they admit they were the ones that created the zone, or as C Conscious puts it, the tangible manifestation of their interference with the Noosphere. The green guy then continues explaining why Straylock had the mission to kill themselves, which he says is just a bolt out of the machine.
You're a bolt that fell out of the machine. Unfortunately, that did not come to our attention for a long time. From the moment the zone was formed, many people have tried to get to its center, but we cannot let that happen. Humanity is not ready for the truth. That is why we recruited Stalkers by promising them the fulfillment of their most coveted desires.
Meaning it was something C Consciousness wasn't aware of until the paradox was too late. We also can ask what the Stalker tattoo means, which C Consciousness explains is a coded acronym meant for their agents. Stalkers, I guess, who have succumbed to their brainwashing or recalibration, but then why would everyone south of the barrier willingly call themselves Stalkers? C Consciousness also explains the death trucks being the main way of the brainwash agents getting to the Stalker population and spreading the rumors of the center of the zone in order to recruit new Stalkers. Okay, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is how they chose Straylock to do the mission when C Consciousness seems to be omnipresent, at least having the ability to teleport Monolith troops, which we just saw. I'm surprised they don't have an answer, and the hologram only says they're still trying to figure out how they messed up this badly. C Consciousness also tells us that they weren't involved in the 86 disaster, and that nothing Psi experimental was being produced until 89, 3 years after, yet I believe in Clear Sky we find out that Lemansk was used as a secret research facility before the 86 disaster, so I'm assuming that C Consciousness lies about some things here. And then we get the choice.
That depends on you. The zone is growing. We are trying to restrain its expansion, but humanity seems to be intent on hindering our work. Our resources are not limitless, and the bodies connected to C consciousness eventually die. If you join us, we can restrict the zone's growth. If you decide otherwise, we cannot make a credible prognosis of the outcome.
Join the merged minds and maybe control the zone, or screw those people. I chose screw them. We instantly get teleported away from C Consciousness and now have to fight our way throughout the exterior of the power plant. This was frickin' epic. Not only monolith enemies teleporting everywhere and you utilizing anomalies to teleport yourself, but again, it's the sheer scope of this level. My mouth was to the floor. Talk about verticality and spacing. Having the sniper rifle made certain shots a breeze, and I also enjoyed the fact that the ground shaking threw off my handling, even though it kind of got annoying after a little bit. This game for 2007 has remarkably held up through gameplay mechanics, vivid visuals, incredible sound design, and a great story to boot. This was a fitting ending fighting off monolith soldiers with the backdrop of the CNPP. There's also a definite reference to Half-Life here.
What's the meaning of this? Who are you? How did you get in here?
And apparently you can throw a grenade and kill Sidorovich if you have the right timing. We go into another portal and bam, cutscene. Do it.
I don't know whether I was right or wrong. I guess I'll never know. But I made it. And I guess I should be thankful for that.
That's Shadows of Chernobyl. Holy goodness, what a game. Honestly, it's one of my favorites of the 2000s, even if you don't know what happens until the third game. And we'll get there. I love how Straylock says, I have no idea if I did the right thing. I love that because I felt the same way. I guess I have to change my flair on Reddit since I was brainwashed into loving Monolith, and now I know it's a goddamn lie. I think I'll join the Mercs, see what jobs I can do. But, oh boy, what a truly fantastic game Shadows of Chernobyl is. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to listen to this adventure. I would love to hear what your thoughts on the game are, what story and lore elements you liked, and if I didn't focus on something you found important, what was it? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to write the next script for Clear Sky, starting probably in the next hour, because holy god, is it not the game Shadow Chernobyl is. It's not horrible either, but stay tuned. If you really enjoyed the video, check out my channel. There's something there for everyone. I make sure of it. And as always, see you next time. Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today we'll be exploring Clear Sky, the second game in the Stalker franchise, and the prequel to Shadow of Chernobyl. I have to admit, I never played Clear Sky back in the day. I don't remember the reasonings behind that, and the only perception I had of the game is through other people's comments. Oh boy, some people did not enjoy the game. However, if you've watched some of my other content, you might get the gist that I'm a cup half full kind of person. It takes a lot for a game to get on my nerves. So I was interested to see how quote-unquote bad Clear Sky was going to be, since Reddit users and articles seem to denigrate the title. Quickly, I think hate is a very strong word to use when reviewing something like a video game. Bad is okay, but Clear Sky, at least for myself, evokes more questions than good times. One of those questions is, why did they change so many things from Shadow of Chernobyl?
Bullshit.
For example, I couldn't help but rave about SOC's shooting mechanics in the first retrospective, especially after getting the VSS. Weapon handling and weight in Clear Sky are completely different and gave me the feeling like I was shooting a water gun that had holes in its barrel. Most upgraded weapons using the new mechanic did not change spray patterns, and if a player did rely on this method, the progression was so back and forth compared to the first game that I wouldn't be angry at someone for putting it down halfway through. One of the most notable instances of this was the Lemansk Bridge, where you have to kill a bandit sniper that appears on the hill, before he can shoot the mercenary lowering the bridge. Simple, right? I swear to the Stalker gods, I was there for what felt like 30 minutes. I had a VSS and a Dragunov, yet still couldn't reliably hit the sniper. I had no choice, either go all the way south during what should have been an intense firefight to scrounge for money to upgrade my new weapons, or try my luck. I chose the latter. But Clear Sky isn't all bad, boasting some of the most incredible lighting and weather effects for the time, and having some great set pieces apart from that damn bridge. That's what I want to explore in today's retrospective. The good, the bad, and all the questions in Clear Sky. If you have not watched my retrospective on the first game, Shadow of Chernobyl, I will highly recommend doing so now, since we'll be spoiling the story today, and it has more meaning if you played the first game. So, we start out with the cinematic like SOC, and honestly, I'm a fan. Love to see ecologists out in their natural habitat. Plus, this yet-to-be-named character has a VSS, so I know he's a badass.
In actual fact, we have nothing to worry about. According to our research, the next emission will not occur for at least 2 months, 4 days, and 7 hours. Its intensity will be 3 on the Bergman scale, which is 2.13.
Seeing mutants running is never a good sign. Exactly. Wow, these graphics are nice. We wake up to hear the tail end of a conversation talking about an emission and the fact that our character miraculously survived it. Now, this wasn't like SOC's emission where the Marked One and the ecologist survive. This was something much bigger. We meet Lebedev, who explains that his faction, Clear Sky, found the player character after a gigantic emission and took him back to their base in the Great Swamps. One of the best implementations of storytelling in the Stalker franchise is being able to talk to almost anyone from the factions you have access to. I always get excited by player choice when it comes to exploring the deeper parts of game stories. It's probably why I hoard audio logs from any game that has them. Immediately, we can have this interesting dialogue about the zone itself with whom I'm assuming is one of the doctors of this faction, Professor Beanpolev. Sorry for the pronunciation. The professor explains to us that the zone was persistent for many years, allowing Clear Sky to conduct research with an almost test group-like condition. Something has changed, and now the zone is, as the professor puts it,
the system became unstable, distorted, a glitch of sorts. The zone is spewing out emission after emission and pumping itself full of energy with each one, so much so that the readings on my sensors oscillate with unbelievable speed. And unless we find a way of reversing this trend, the result will be a disaster of far greater proportions than the 1986 catastrophe. The most important lesson in all this is that this glitch is not a product of natural causes. This is human handiwork.
Even worse than 1986. The professor also alludes to the zone's reaction being that of human handiwork, which will lead us into the main narrative, but for now, we start off a little smaller. Talking to Lebedev again has us questioning a lot of things. Why the zone is causing these frequent emissions, how to deal with the changing anomalies after each emission, and how to defend the newly opened swamp. A radio call interrupts our conversation, and we have to go through a tutorial. This tutorial itself is a snippet of what you'll encounter in terms of pacing throughout this game. Remember how SOC started? You immediately had the choice to go up north, say screw the quests, and probably die to the military at the derailed train. It was awesome. It makes me question who thought this stutter step of a beginning was a good idea. I'm all for lore dumps and prequels as sequels, but after just finishing SOC, this was not helping Clear Sky's cause.
An emission is approaching. Get to cover now!
Another emission occurs and we're back in bed. Talking to Lebedev, who I guess feels a little bit more inclined to give us information the second time we should have been dead, he reveals what the emissions are and their effect on our body. It is not good.
You know, Bien Polev was right. You defy scientific explanation. He believes that you acquired some, let's say, unusual abilities, which help you survive anomalous activity that would literally tear anyone else down to atoms.
Lebedev explains that the zone has a seemingly robust immune system that is reacting to something. He also is the second person to reference the Scorcher, a place that we visit in SOC. But would Scar, our player character, know about it? Was it common knowledge that the Scorcher was past the barrier? Anyways, he also makes it seem like the center of the zone should never be ventured into, likening it to a taboo. He also has a line about not being able to share everything with Scar, even though he admits to being at the CNPP pre-2006. He also mentions that we just have to trust him, and if you've watched my faction video, I lambast him for this. Anyways, Clear Sky's main goal is, I guess, to stop people from screwing with the zone, in a good sense. I find it interesting that Monolith and them have similar goals, especially with finishing the conversation with Lebedev, who gives us our main quest. We're tasked with finding the son of a gun who's been going into the center of the zone and causing all these emissions. I know this is a lot of exposition on my end and on the games as well, which was not the case for SOC. It's hard not to compare the two, especially having played them back to back. Yet, I'll try my hardest to constructively compare the two games, not just rail on Clear Sky, so let's get into it.
I knew you'd ask that. The answer is simple. If the emissions aren't stopped, your nervous system will burn out and you'll die. Help us and you'll save yourself. Now this may sound like a line from a corny movie, but you really don't have a choice.
Clear Sky tried to be unique, adding certain systems like faction wars and upgrading weapons. Because this is a main story retrospective, I didn't really invest any time into this mechanic, and it seemed like I didn't need to either, despite a whole voice tutorial. The first hour of the game had me going back and forth between renegade camps, this game's version of the more lawless bandit tribe. I didn't find this terrible because exploring the Great Swamps always was interesting. What I didn't like is that Scar's stamina is like zilch, and you're not getting that many energy drinks. Anyways, with Scar's help, Clear Sky retains power of the swamps, and we're told to go to Cordon, a familiar place if you played the first game. It's one of the stronger elements of the series, seeing the changing of the zone through each telling. Obviously, Call of Pripyat has the least crossover, but being back in Gordon gave me a nostalgic feeling. We do have to run past this machine gun, which, good gosh, I'm so glad it wasn't an SOC. Sidorovich radios us in, and we meet the infamous traitor. We ask him if he knows a stalker who's been looking for specific rare components. Obviously, it's Sidorovich, who won't do anything for free. He informs us of a botched agreement between free stalkers and the military that's regressed to the stalkers holding one of their commanders captive. So we have to broker a deal between the two factions and get the loot back for Sidorovich. We're just a random merc, sure.
The order needs to be completed, so help me get the case with the loot and I'll tell you all about your stalker and his components. Deal?
Heading to the farmstead, we meet with one of the stalker leaders, and I should put leader in quotes because not all stalkers listen to this guy. Father Valerian tells us that one of the military commanders was playing both sides of the deal, allowing for the loot to be passed through the checkpoint, but also alerting bandits to the whereabouts of the free stalkers. Obviously, Valerian is peeved about this, but also admits they might have been a little carried away. We play hostage negotiator, and the commander caves quickly. Grabbing the loot, we make our way back to Sidorovich, who tells us about a stalker named Fang. Fang has been looking for tube amplifiers and other specific electronics. Sidorovich also tells us that he didn't have everything that Fang needed, so he sent him north to Garbage. And that's our next destination. We mosey on up to one of the garbage dumps and find a couple of dead bodies with a handy voice PDA, which says that Fang stormed off, and they sent one of their silver-tongued group to track him down.
I gave Fang the component we found in the cache. He wouldn't stop swearing and said he wouldn't pay us until we found the other components. We discussed it between ourselves and decided to send Vasya to speak to him. Vasya is one silver-tongued son of a gun. We figured he might be able to talk Fang into paying us at least some of the money. I just hope he doesn't run into trouble on the way there.
The breadcrumbs are forming, but it also feels like the setup is becoming linear. I know they do this in SOC, but it just felt different in Clear Sky. Do this to do that to find this guy. Oh wait, we just missed him? And this will just continue for the whole game. We do find the group's friend Vaisan, who, after we defend a rock against blind dogs, tells us that the stalker Fang had disappeared into the Dark Valley, and we have to track him from there. See what I mean about breadcrumbs?
Picture this. I'm on my way west, trying to catch up with this stalker, minding my own business and all, and these eyeless beasts come out of nowhere. I emptied 3 clips into the damn things, but they just kept on coming and chased me all the way to here. There's no way I'll catch that stalker now. He's got to be in the Dark Valley at this point.
Oh wow, so I liked entering the Dark Valley. It's completely different from when you do it in SOC. There is a freedom convoy ready and waiting for you when you start the level. They also tell you Fang is probably dead because mysterious attacks against freedom have been happening throughout the area. We meet with Lingov, who pulls a Sidorovich and tells us that he has a bit of information, but won't tell us until we do some jobs for him, that being hunting down a psi dog or a pseudo dog. After accepting, I did take some time to walk around the Freedom base, since in SOC it was infested with bandits. It made me question how this faction can be so unique. I mean, in SOC, Freedom seemed to be badass personnel that are equipped to the nines and defend the zone against the monolith forces like Cap on the Barrier and Army warehouses. Now, in Clear Sky, I'm talking to a character named Ganja, literally who partakes in the name and substance, but also has some wild lore if he is to be believed. Ganja talks about one stalker who told him of an encounter with a semi-transparent creature with an advanced protective suit, something no stalker would have. The transparent entity told him, "Leave, we are working, you are interrupting our work," which happened right next to radar. Even though Ganja says not to believe everything you hear, that semi-transparent character talking about how not to fuck up their experiments sounds very familiar. Yeah, I couldn't help but think that was sea consciousness. Who else would be projecting their astral body, or however you call it? Anyways, we perform a couple of tasks for Lingov, who turns out to be a double agent or traitor, and leaves the Freedom base on our return. This is the catalyst for meeting the actual leader of Freedom in Clear Sky, Chekhov. I wonder if he has a gun. Okay, I'll see myself out. Chekhov is kind of heartbroken that his friend and commanding partner was a traitor, even stating they've known him for ages. Chekhov wants us to hunt down Lingov the traitor, but he does tell us more about Fang before we depart.
There was a stalker like that, very interested in rare parts and the like. He must have known that we had the best team in the whole zone. I sold him the part he wanted, and why not? He paid well and didn't even haggle. What I don't know is what he wanted with it. These parts were only used in old army cryptographic machines. He left the base straight away, and nobody's seen him since.
Very interesting. Cryptography? We've seen this decoding before. Now, I love the ancient feeling they evoke with these Soviet parts, even though I guess it's only 14 years after the fall in the game timeline. It gives the zone a unique history and even makes the generated economy seem plausible, that being something around bartering and real money exchanges for this derelict technology. But Chekhov won't tell us where Fang ran off to until we bring Lingov, so we head out to the PDA's position. We get to the farmstead and encounter real mercenaries. Sorry Scar, you don't have the cool armor. A bit sad, but we hear from a mercenaries PDA that they just kill Lingov once he arrives, so there's no chance to bring him to justice.
Our poor little commandant sure didn't get far. His new friends found a nice spot for him, on a tree. Alright, grab that asshole's PDA and get right back to me.
We head back to Chekhov with Lingov's PDA, which, to nobody's surprise, the mercenaries are responsible for the mysterious attacks on Freedom. Unfortunately, the Freedom Boys still don't know why they are attacking them. If you watch my lore video on the Stalker factions, we know that the mercs will do anything for the highest bidder, so someone is paying them the big bucks for such an operation. Chekhov also tells us that they had someone hack Fang's PDA to track him, and gives us the coordinates. Okay, I guess, but we can also help Freedom deal with the attacks, and Chekhov sends us to one of the places that he believes the mercs were using, a familiar factory. After clearing out the mercenaries from above Lab X-18, the mercenaries decide to blow up the tunnel entrance they've been using, and we declare victory for Freedom. Whoopee!
Base, Freedom is by the tunnel. Mission failed. Through the tunnel.
Even after quote-unquote saving Freedom, I still can't join them, which I was kind of confused about. Like, I didn't do enough for you, Chekhov? I guess with a name like that, you have to have your superstitions. Anyways, we follow our PDA tracking breadcrumb back to garbage, and then this happens.
This place is pretty damn good. Look at all these stalkers charging in here like flies to honey. I wonder what they're after.
It's too bad that punk got away.
Screw him. He dropped his shit. That's all that matters.
Yeah, let's grab the best stuff and get the hell out of here.
You still with us, Mark? Good, good. Fang's PDA is right next to you somewhere. Find it.
Well, Fang, the situation has changed. Someone knows we reached the center of the zone and they're looking for us. We've got to move, and fast. You'll find a detailed plan of action in our stash. I changed the code.
I enjoyed this part, especially having all my items that I compiled for the last hours being taken away, and given a shitty pistol. Yeah, that's great. We do get this piece of information about Fang knowing we are after them, or multiple people, since the bandits also allude to multiple stalkers getting trapped here. So, Lebedev has a mental breakdown because this confirms that stalkers have not only accessed the interior of the zone, but they can do it with impunity, somehow surviving the missions that have ripped the zone anew. I guess I would be pretty pissed too if I was a scientist trying to understand anything about the zone, and then it having it completely rearranged. Plus, as Lebedev has said previously, he's been in the zone for a long time. A long time. Okay, so we get our weapons back, and fuck these two guys. Our next stop is Agroprom, which happens to be occupied by Duty. Again, the zone is not static, which I think brings a more dynamic feeling to the universe. Another feeling I get when playing Clear Sky is how screwed most of these factions are. Obviously, Freedom and Duty stick around for the foreseeable future, yet they get pummeled by the Zone in every direction. Freedom having to deal with bandits and mercenaries, and Duty apparently has a mutant problem. God, I love these aesthetics of Agroprom. We meet up with General Krylov, who informs us that the tunnels below are infested with mutants galore. Yeah, no kidding. And they've been countering Duty's efforts by attacking them at night or sneak attacking them from the tunnels themselves. Krylov believes this is because of the research that they discovered when first coming to the Research Institute. Krylov explains that the Soviets had been conducting experiments of mind control, but that this specific type was for animals, and we'll get to the different brain experimentations later on as well. Having played the first game, I think this is definitely a nod to the player about how C consciousness uses the Zone's defenses to their advantage. Or could we be on course for some Cthulhu level entity in the noosphere? Well, I can't wait to find out November 20th. We kill some Snorks and enter the tunnels from the mutant den. Again, this is brilliant storytelling and world building. I did not joke when I said I memorized the way out of Agroprom in SOC, so I didn't have to freak out so much about the Bloodsuckers or Controller at the end. Going into the same place, but from a different entry point, had me on edge. I had no idea what was coming up, and I hadn't talked about the gun so far, but oh boy, did I feel weak compared to when I stepped foot into the tunnels in Shadow of Chernobyl. But why are we even in these tunnels? Well, it's another I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Duty have the bright idea to flood the tunnels, thus killing off the large mutant population, and we still need to find Fang. Also, look at these interior designs. This is another aspect I absolutely adore from these games, and we'll see it more in Call of Pripyat, trying to get to the aforementioned city through the underground. Something about derelict Soviet tunnels and crazy contraptions just gets to me, and if you didn't notice, I freak out a little bit, thinking I needed some psi protection. And I guess I did need it, since the controller does spawn in this room. I don't know if they made the controllers beefier or my guns needed a desperate upgrade, but this guy took so many shots. We turn the valve and get this notification. I absolutely freaked out seeing the stairs descend instead of ascending, and watching the rats run away was a great addition, even though I was going to follow them and this damn gate got in the way. My thought was Scar didn't seem to care about the animals in the opening cinematic running away, so maybe this time it would lead me to safety. Anyways, we run past the ratties and quickly get up the ladder to safety. Honestly, I was a little sad there wasn't more to this. We do, however, end up in another familiar place. Don't make this a drinking game. Ah, the old stomping grounds.
Guys, this is Strelok. I didn't expect Doc to fix me up so fast. I heard rumors that someone has learned of our success and is seeking to contact us. I have a bad feeling about this. I fear we may need to hurry up with our next visit to the center.
Hey, Strelok, good to see you alive. Fang and I found all the parts we needed and put together 2 decoders. We left them both in a stash near the Scorcher. We'll pick them up when we head for the center.
Ghost, that's great news. Our plan is as follows. We can't make it through the underground, so our only option is to go past the Scorcher. I'm on my way to Sakharov to pick up a device that will help us get through the Scorcher in one piece. Wait for me at the military warehouses.
Holy bananas, Batman. It's kind of wild to hear Strelok's voice and point of view before turning into an amnesia patient. It's kind of startling since he doesn't seem to care about what happens outside of the zone or to the people that inhabit it. Think about it, they must know that the zone tries to defend itself. Even more so, the last emission killed a ton of people and changed up anomaly placements, certainly killing much more. I get that it's a world for the toughest people, but Strelok at first seems to be more of an asshole loner, seeking riches or something else in the center of the zone. We also get to hear Ghost's voice for a second, and if you remember, he is the one that goes into Lab X-16 and is killed by the Controller. Also, another topic that confirms my suspicions about the ecologist Professor Sakharov is that Strelok name drops him and confirms that he got the psi protection device from him. Plus, Sakharov knows about the Brain Scorcher in addition to Lab X-16. What else does he know about? So, with all this information, Lebedev is convinced that the next mission will be the ultimate one, an end for our character. This is all predicated on if Strelok's group successfully gets back into the interior, so we gotta book it to save ourselves and the zone. We happen to cross paths with none other than the professor himself, Sakharov, who tells us a little bit about Strelok. Apparently Strelok is somewhere in the abandoned factory, and Sakharov tells us that the psi field fluctuates within the area, so stalkers try to explore it only to get their minds melted. And there's a lot of them that get their minds melted. After finding some documents off of a murdered research team, Sakharov concludes that there is this thing, a man-made machine, under the factory causing psi fluctuations because of a faulty cooling system. Obviously, this is meant for people that have finished SOC, since I don't know if we get that much information about the machine itself from this game. Anyways, we meet up with Lefty and his group and try to infiltrate the factory in order to turn on the cooling system. I enjoyed everything this quest was except for zombies taking an ungodly amount of damage. I understand they're zombies, but good god, SOC had bullet damage perfected, why would they change it? After taking down what feels like buff zombies for 10 minutes, we're tasked with guarding the men turning on the cooling valves. I didn't realize this until writing the script, but they did this last stand moment in the game and on the Limansk bridge. I have this feeling it was like a late 2000s video game thing, but I can't remember specifically which first-person shooters utilized this trope too much. This last stand was visually striking, yet the gameplay was lacking. I guess this is a good time to talk about the guns. Firstly, I understand there is an upgrading system. I've talked with multiple people about this, and even with upgrades, weapon spread is horrendous. Plus, without the proper bullets, which are hard to find, it's not just the zombies who can tank bullets. It also doesn't help that your gun jams all the time past a certain point of degradation. So not only are you missing tons of shots, your gun is also jamming throughout that. It didn't make for a smooth experience like an SOC. We finally managed to cool down the system, and Sakharov informs us that Strelok's PDA signal has resurfaced in the Red Forest. Yippee! So I was not expecting to be sprinting after Strelok, like literally it's him running from us, and I was certainly not expecting this. At this point, I had dug my own grave with not wanting to go back and forth for weapon upgrades or buying ammo, so I went into my gamma phase and became a scavenger. If you notice in the gameplay me running to bodies just to loot ammo and weapons, that is why. So, all these loners attack us and are making sure Strelok escapes through the tunnel. Once we take out the ambush, somehow Strelok communicates with us to rub it in our face that we couldn't get him and that he'll reach the center of the zone.
I blew up the tunnel. You will not stop me. I am going to reach the center of the zone, whatever it takes. Strelok's signal is gone. We lost him.
Strelok just seems like an asshole. Maybe getting amnesia was a good thing for him. So Lebedev tells us that Strelok is going to the Brain Scorcher, and after that it's just a short shot to the center of the zone. Obviously, we would get our minds fried if we stepped a foot closer north, so we'll have to make a detour through Limansk. Sadly, the only way to Limansk is currently blocked by bandits, who somehow made their way onto the other bank. They control the bridge, which can only be lowered on the other side. We're faced with a dilemma. However, Lebedev does tell us about Forrester, some type of guide that might know a way to Limansk. We also find this loner that I guess was part of the ambush but hid. You can get this guy to agree to take you to Forrester, but I think he tries to double cross you. Yet it glitched since I was friendly with loners. Did anyone else experience this?
That's him! Take him down!
If you got something to say it.
Going through the Red Forest is horrifying, and I'm glad I wasn't there during the nighttime, especially for the next part. This guy takes so many bullets, it took me about 3 tries to get him, all of which my armor got destroyed. We find the teleporting anomaly and come across a group of duty outside Forrester's apartment, or domain. I don't know what to call this. But I do know that the graphics in Clear Sky have held up so well. I mean, come on. This is atmosphere up the wazoo and a clear upgrade from SOC. We talk with Forrester, who has special powers like us. Scar can survive emissions, and Forrester claims that the zone helps him traverse its area, even to the point of saving him, or so Forrester believes. Forrester also echoes what Lebedev said at the beginning of the game, that being Scar is somehow special, and that the zone, even with all the crazy anomalies and mutants, was stable before the events taking place recently. Forrester also surmises that because the bridge was raised by Freedom or Duty after the mission that took Scar out, but there are bandits on the other side, there must be another way to it. Forrester also gives a lot of lore about the town of Lemansk and makes me question why Lebedev knows so much about the town, or at least the route to it. Forrester goes on about how Lemansk never existed on the map, making people believe it wasn't real, but he saw it. He goes on to talk about how Lemansk was a research institute with houses built specifically for scientists and their servants. The institute was named Radio Wave, and when we get into Lemansk, you'll see all the radio towers strewn around the abandoned city. So, if it was abandoned or it was kept secretive, why does Lebedev know about it? And we'll figure that out soon. Also, you can see the similarity between these radio towers that the Soviet scientists used for their experiments and the towers that Monolith use or construct during each game. The last bit of interesting lore Forrester gives us on Lemansk is that he claims that the city was not evacuated during the Chernobyl incident. Whether that was due to the secretive nature of the city itself or the typical Soviet malfeasance, it sets up the city perfectly with history and mystery. So previously Lemansk was a death trap, but because of Strelok's first incursion into the zone and the subsequent emissions it caused, the town is now open for business and is a safer way north past the Brain Scorcher. Lucky us. Our next destination is the army warehouses, where we're informed that a group of mercenaries has vanished. Talking to one of their superiors, we're told that the group of mercs had been looking for a special artifact, and indeed found it. Unfortunately, that was just when the emission hit, and afterwards there has been no direct contact, just faint radio transmissions. So we set off to see if we can figure out where these mercs ended up, and maybe figure out how to teleport our way into Lemansk. At least that's what I thought. We do our due diligence and end up figuring out that the merc squad is stuck in a time loop or a time bubble. Our boy Forrester coincidentally has been in a time bubble recently and tells us that an artifact called the Compass, which would be able to locate and save the mercenary squad, is a thing. But wouldn't you know, bandits took it from him and we have to get it back. After our successful operation, we head back to the merc leader and tell them we have the ability to save their friends, but we need to find an antenna strong enough for them to receive the coordinates for an exit. I like this part because it shows the tentative alliances the factions try to maintain. Not all the military was wiped out during the last major emission, and the only antenna strong enough to broadcast the exit coordinates is in the military base. The merc leader actually declines to engage with the military despite needing to complete this mission. Instead, he calls in someone from Freedom who are already planning on taking over the warehouses, which is cool because you're seeing how Freedom gets established around the warehouses and the barrier. This was a hard fight, and there were a lot more military personnel than I expected. Also, I love that you could just shoot open this locked cabinet, even if there wasn't anything there. After defeating the military, we transmit the coordinates and bam, we freed the mercs who happen to appear on the other side of the bridge. Lebedev immediately after tells us that we're needed back at the bridge ASAP, and so starts one of the most annoying portions of gaming I've experienced in a while. If you've watched my Brothers in Arms video, this is on par with buying the farm level. I could not believe how bad the SVD is, and the bullet drop from the VSS long range is atrocious. And again, I understand upgrading weapons, that still has less of an effect than you would think. The whole entire shtick is the merc squad we just saved from the bubble can lower the bridge, if, and that is a big if, they get cover from us. The first 30 minutes I tried to do what any person would, kill the bandits thinking it was just useful. No, you're just wasting bullets, especially the SVD specific ammo. What you should do, and what I figured out way too late into my frustration, is that the other bandits do not matter. They do not stop Leshy from lowering the bridge, only the sniper bandit does, so just camp the sniper and eventually the bridge comes down. Eventually. I know we're pretty late into the video and I don't want to spend more time on things I didn't enjoy, but wow, fuck this bridge.
Sniper on the hill!
We thank the Merc boys and Lebedev sends in the Clear Sky troops.
If it weren't for him, we'd be stuck in that bubble trap forever.
Either way, I owe you.
I'll keep that in mind.
We have completed a brilliant operation.
So,
the bridge
what
has
is
been
it that you
lowered,
need?
and the road to Limansk is now open. Advance squad, move out into Limansk and find a safe path to the city. Everyone else, hold the bridge and wait for the main squad.
Speak of the devil. I was just thinking of you. Start talking, buddy. Stay in touch. We may need your help soon.
Limansk starts exactly how I would picture the creepy town, with a side of Soviet experiments. We run into this bandit that's friend is dying. You can choose whether to help him or not, and I decided to help him since I saw a video on the subreddit about him blowing himself up. Now, I don't know if that actually happens if you don't help him, but I wasn't going to take any chances. The bandit cues us in on an ambush ahead, and we enter the end game. I adore Limansk's layout. I know I sound like a broken record by now, yet these areas that the developers have managed to create evoke real emotions. You not only have these close quarter firefights throughout the streets, but you also get these arenas that are quite large. Plus the ambient music is haunting. The city itself gets lots of angles to use against bandits and our new enemy, Monolith soldiers. Yeah, this is the first time you'll be facing Monolith, and they do not mess around. The Clear Sky squad and Scar kind of get surrounded while they move deeper into the city, and that fear of Monolith death squads narrowing on your position, plus the aesthetics, makes this one of my favorite levels in gaming. Crossing the bridge to Administrative Building is one of those moments I'll never forget, using crates as cover and advancing when I had the chance. After clearing out Monolith squads from the building, we come up on one of the coolest anomalies in the game. I don't know what it's called, but you can see what anomalies can do to space-time, as we also witnessed from the previous mission. We walk up to this narrow staircase, and I'm getting Half-Life 2 vibes for some reason watching the footage. The construction site was one of the harder fights in the franchise as well. Whether that was grenades coming at you from all sides, the Monolith soldiers spawning in, or Monolith soldiers instantly spawning in throwing grenades. You pick. Side note, a lot of people complain about the grenade usage from AI in this game, and I didn't really experience that. I know I just said what I said, but this is one of the only times where it felt like it was a grenade spam rather than just necessary usage. Anyways, we fight this John Wick battle around and within the construction site, killing countless enemies. Somehow the Clear Sky guys just went around the construction site? Okay. Wow, those towers look familiar. We fight a Monolith sniper in a Saving Private Ryan scenario, and then you discover that the Monolith guys set up a trap. You gotta test out the waters at least once. Anyways, I think the Half-Life 2 vibe is from the Eastern European town and then platforming on the rooftops to disable traps. There is a generator supplying energy to the water, but we quickly take it out. Damn, this ambient music reminds me of Silent Hill.
Great! The power to the vents has been cut. Advance! Good job. The main squad is ready to move to Limansk. Advance squad, your objective is to find the entrance to the Pripyat underground. The entrance is at the old hospital on the edge of Limansk. The coordinates are on your PDA.
Lebedev tells us that the next step is to find the abandoned hospital, which leads to the CNPP. Older games prove that if you nail ambiance and setting, graphics don't really matter. And oh boy, do they pull this off at the hospital. Not only is this making the player question how can a hospital be underground, but as soon as you enter it, you can feel the zone has corrupted it, or at least molded it with its churning tunnels and almost tomb-like surroundings. Things are not looking great as we get to the upper floor of the hospital. We find the first squad pinned down by an MG and sniper. Weirdly, we can't just shoot the sniper, you have to play it the way the game wants you to, and use the flanks to advance. This was a pretty hard fight as well, with the melancholy music in the background and no armor left. It felt heavy. Like, was I able to finish this fight? I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it was my experience, and I kind of liked it.
Great, that's the sniper down. The road is clear. We're moving out to try and blow up that pillbox.
After disposing of the MG and sniper, we advance to the next area, but by God, is that military music playing?
Base, this is 021. I see an enemy squad plus an unidentified stalker. Requesting orders. 021, take them all out.
Yeah, so I guess the military sent in a helicopter to see what the hell was going on near Lemansk and the CNPP. This was more of a cool visual, since taking out a military helicopter with a VSS is pretty remarkable, even for my standards. With the helicopter destroyed and our dominance asserted over the military, we've made it to the CNPP.
Glad to see you, man. We've done the impossible. We fought our way into the very center of the zone, to the power plant, and mostly thanks to you. Petrenko, get a scan of Strelak's PDA frequency.
Commander, Strelak is very close. Lebedev, this is the recon squad. We got a visual on Strelak. Merc, climb onto the heat pipeline and intercept Strelak. We'll cover you from the ground. Merc, here's an electromagnetic gun prototype. It will let you disable Strelak's side protection and help stop him. Without protection, Strelak won't last long under the emission. Even our own suits can barely neutralize the field. Get up close to Strelak and cut off his side protection.
So it took me a bit to realize what was happening here. Strelak, I guess, does the same thing twice, or maybe even 3 times by coming to the center of the zone. In SOC, he is teleporting around the CNPP to find C consciousness. This time around, I truly don't understand what he's looking for, other than the Wish Granter. But if it was the Wish Granter, wouldn't C consciousness just allow him to get there and then wipe his mind? What do you think? So, we get a cutscene of Strelak parkouring around and we're tasked with taking down his psi resistance with a Gauss rifle that Lebedev somehow has? Okay, I know we're at the end, but what the hell is this? There's absolutely no setup to this being established and feels so added last minute that I couldn't help but feel thrust out of the game, when Lemansk and the hospital were such enthralling parts. Plus, the whole point of weakening Strelak's psi protection is so that he will succumb to the eventual emission, but won't we as well? This is essentially a suicide mission. Lebedev claims that the suits they're wearing could protect them, but that feels off. If that were true, why not just go through the Brain Scorcher? And, oh my god, the gameplay. Does this look fun? No recoil, no reaction, just hitting Strelak over and over again. We're also doing the same mechanic that the ending of SOC had, but this time the gunplay isn't as fun and these monolith soldiers tank hits, plus actually teleport in throwing grenades. I do not know how I survived this part. It took a long time of reloading, but in the end we got him. Well, holy moly, what the goodness gracious ending was that?
Side protection has been disabled. That ought to stop him. Now we just wait and see what happens. How are the readings? Any drop in the level of anomaly?
I now understand why people do not enjoy this game as much as SOC or COP, because that just felt like an abrupt ending. You're telling me that Lebedev went all this way from the Great Swamps to the CNPP and thought if he had just killed or maimed Strelok that the zone would just stop? We'll know more about Lebedev actually in the third game called Pripyat, which makes this choice even more crazy to me. It's like his hunch that this would stop the zone's emissions, but just gets fried by it? All those years of preparation, scientific experiments taken away, and for what? Then we have this cutscene which is ominous to say the least. Some cool things that we know is that Scar is back for Stalker 2, and that seemingly tells me that he had been part of Monolith since the beginning of SOC. We'll see what dark stuff he's done in the name of the voice. Anyways, I think there were moments in the game that will still stay with me all my gaming life, and certain areas like Lemang's Red Forest, hell, even the Dark Valley, shine in mystery and ambiance, giving the player spooks and thrills, or a nice way of saying a dynamic experience. But those moments come with the other side of the game, the atrocious gunplay compared to the first game, and the odd pacing that I felt through my 11 hours playing through the main story. I don't know if I would have enjoyed Clear Sky if I hadn't just played SOC and really got into the lore and narrative they were going for. Clear Sky is a prequel to the sequel, and as an avid lore fan, really gave depth to a lot of things unexplained or glossed over in the first game. This is a unique perspective playing Scar, and having access to a secretive group like Clear Sky, it was a great way to expand the zone's history and meaning. Characters you meet along the way give great insights on the zone's creepier aspects, and retracing certain areas from the first game like Agroprom was ingenious. I don't dislike this game, but I definitely got frustrated by the aspects that I've talked in length about in the video, and I fear my record is breaking down. So I'll end on this. I understand why people like this game. I understand why people don't like this game. I understand why I like Shadow of Chernobyl and Call of Pripyat because I played Clear Sky, and I'm very excited to see where the developers go in the next installment. I also want to point out that I'm hoping it won't be like Gamma or Anomaly for Stalker 2. As much as I enjoy those mods, playing through the original trilogy, you get a lot more direct storytelling, which is a good thing. Actually, just side note, IGN just released its final look at Stalker 2, and there seems to be a lot of storytelling and mixed storytelling. This is off script, sorry. But it looks like there's going to be multiple endings or multiple story points that the player will have influence over. Now, not everything has to be open world either, and I enjoyed the set pieces in Clear Sky the most, even with the atrocious shooting. And that's all, folks. Thanks for sticking around. I would love to know your thoughts on the game, what questions you had about the story, or anything franchise related. I can't wait to finish off this retrospective series with Call of Pripyat, which should be coming out soon. And honestly, it's a pretty freaking awesome game, so I can't wait. And as always, see you next time.
To find true friends in freedom, only in our ranks can you always find someone willing to cover your back and share his last loaf of bread with you.
Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today, we'll be exploring Call of Pripyat, the final game in the original Stalker trilogy, and probably the most acclaimed out of the three. For good reason too. Even though I adore this game, and I'll go in depth on why that is throughout the next hour, I still hold Shadow of Chernobyl, the first in the series, as the best of the trilogy. If you haven't watched my retrospective on SOC, I would highly recommend doing so before this video, since we'll be spoiling a lot of things and talking about how COP and the whole trilogy sets up Stalker 2, which comes out in November. Call of Pripyat brings a lot to the table and is kind of a conglomeration of the best features in both Shadow of Chernobyl and Clear Sky. It is also different in the fact that the linear storytelling is less focused on, and a more open world-like system is implemented, even though there is still a main quest. And that's what we'll be focusing on today, the main story of COP, and some of the side content that the zone throws at you. This was my organic experience. I had not played Call of Pripyat since maybe 2012, and there were only certain things that I remembered. So I'm going into this game with an open mind. Plus the fact that I had finished both SOC and Clear Sky right before, I was excited to see how GSC would continue the narrative that they've written, and I was not disappointed. I can't fully explain how much these retrospectives have meant to me. The one thing I can express is pointing out the beauty in these games through design, visuals, auditory, or gameplay mechanics. It is such a delight. You can feel the dedication and effort put in by the developers, and without further ado, let's get into it. There were some things in Call of Pripyat that I questioned, like taking away from SOC or Clear Sky, so we get no cinematic to start off. I was a little bit saddened by this since I loved the graphical cinematics at the beginning of Clear Sky and SOC. What we do get is a retelling of the history of Chernobyl, some real and some from the game. You also get this great photo of the Miracle Machine or Big Brain from Lab X16 in the intro as well, which is just a vibe on its own. If you didn't watch the previous retrospectives or play the games, just know that the Soviets went wild trying to mind control people.
June 11th, 2006. The exclusion zone lights up with a flash of blinding light as clouds can be seen evaporating in the sky. After a moment of complete silence, a peal of thunder shakes the ground. Most of the government forces guarding the perimeter are killed instantly. 2008. Scientists are still unable to explain what happened. Rare expeditions into the zone usually end in tragedy.
Honestly, this is a good intro for people that never played the previous games and sets the tone perfectly. We also get the main overview for the quest we're embarking on. We play as Major Alexander Degtyarev. I'm just going to call him the Major, who the intro describes as an experienced stalker familiar with the zone. I really enjoy this aspect since it gives the character a more plausible answer to why he's such a badass. We're tasked with figuring out why all these helicopters the military sent in failed to come back, and blam! This was very confusing to start like this, just on a gameplay aspect. I wasn't expecting just to spawn in. It's kind of wild if you think about both Clear Sky and Shadow Chernobyl. They had so much smoother transitions. I know I didn't like the tutorial during Clear Sky, but whatever. It had better transitions than this game. Regardless, we are in the game, and oh boy, the music, the PDA, the random loners that you first meet, it's all coming up Stalker. A narrative I've heard a lot from people online is that Call of Pripyat takes the best of both previous games and melds them together into something unique. I understand the sentiment behind that, and will point out situations from Call of Pripyat that I think show an excellent evolution within the developers. For now, we're in an unexplored territory, and we need to figure out where the locals like to be. We're given directions to a beach ship called the Skadovsk. Honestly, I'm blown away to this day from the visuals of this game, and the thought of a ship being out in these marshes, well, something ecologically devastating must have happened. One thing about Call of Pripyat is that it is much less linear in terms of progression than both Clear Sky and Shadow Chernobyl. This is a main story retrospective, yes, but you cannot go through the story without doing some of the side missions, so I will be including it in the video since I believe they add on to the main story and create an interesting narrative, especially since the game has multiple endings depending on your choices. We meet Sultan, a pseudo-bandit leader that has taken refuge on the ship. It's a tentative relationship with the Free Stalkers, but for some reason, Beard, the bartender, allows the bandits to stay. Sultan offers us a job, and we take it.
We'll give it to him good.
Hey, what's going on?
Take a chill pill, man. We'll take them easy.
What is this music? Yeah, I have no idea why they put in hype combat soundtrack when it never gets played again, but whatever. We loot up the stalkers we killed, whoopsies, and head back to the ship. We can ask a lot of people a lot of questions about the crashed helicopters, and I really enjoyed this aspect of the game, the more RPG dialogue focus. It makes sense and is intriguing. You can also just follow your map if you don't want the story. It was late from doing the bandits quest, so I decided we might want to sleep, instead of going out into the toxic swamps from hell. So I found a bed and tucked in my head, only to be awakened by this message. An emission has recently occurred in the zone? Uh-oh. So, at the end of Clear Sky, the game before this, you and the team died to an immense emission after trying to stop Straylock from accessing the CNPP. Knowing that emissions are happening regularly is a bit daunting, and the thought of them happening when in a gigantic open swamp gave me the chills. But the show must go on. Call of Pripyat does a fantastic job with its open world layout, which is larger scale than both of the original games. Open worlds can sometimes be hard to pull off, yet COP does an excellent job because it creates these landmarks off in the distance that intrinsically make you explore. The weather effects are well done, and the ambient music adds on to the oppressive yet beautiful layers you see while walking throughout the zone. We get to our first helicopter and investigate.
All the electronics inside burned out. Even the power cable sheaths melted.
Okay, that was quick, Major. So I guess on to the next one? Our next helicopter is at an electrical facility or plant, I don't know what to call it. Anyways, what I'm saying about a fantastic level design is exactly what this place is, and its details. Also, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Stingray 2 gives us a bit more detail about the possible whereabouts of the crews from the other helicopters, if they survived.
Looks like the crew died in midair and the helicopter simply crashed because there was nobody there to fly it. The onboard computer was a little luckier. I wonder if there's anything useful here. Ah, there's something. A map of the area with certain locations marked. That should come in handy.
We head eastward and stumble upon another beach ship. These are really cool aesthetics.
Go to hell, freaking muties!
Wow, another guy with a pseudo-dog. Hi, baby girl. So, this is one of the things I'm hoping for in Stalker 2, is that we get transitions a little bit better by having dialogue or something that's just not cut to black loading screen. By the way, this is Noah, and he knows where to find the third helicopter. Unfortunately, we need to use a teleporting anomaly, which, I don't know if they know this, but I'm certain with the amount of time Noah has been in the zone that anomalies change after each emission. It's something the Major does not know at this time, so we're lucky if this goes safely. Could you imagine next week it just teleports them to the CNPP or the hospital? Anyways, we jump and find ourselves on the plateau with a nice pun from Noah.
Nice jump! Feel free to drop by sometime!
We also encounter our first mutant, surprisingly, and it's the Snork. I'm glad they changed the audio just a little bit. They sounded way too much like lions in the last games. However, I hate them in Call of Pripyat because of how tanky they are, and they come at you in numbers. Anyways, we get to Helicopter 3 and listen to the Major.
So Stingray 3 had engine failure in both engines. What else is there? A map with what look like possible evacuation locations. Positions B2, B28, and B205. Interesting.
This helicopter has the evacuation locations from the military if the mission was botched. So, if the next helicopters are done for as well, we can at least check these evac locations. We also accept a mission to investigate mercenaries that had created a base in the south. These mercenaries were absolutely kitted to the nines, and it was a fun fight. Nothing like a shotgun to a merc's head. Going back to the open world layout for a second, it is hard to pull off. Another thing COP has going for it is populating its world with random stalker groups. Trudging through the tall leaves exhausted, only to hear the beautiful serenade of a harmonica from a free stalker, gave me these moments like I was in an Elder Scrolls game.
Speak to the boss.
We found each helicopter that crashed in Zaton, and now we have to make our way south. Which is weird, since how did the Major enter the zone without coming from the south? We meet our guide pilot, who graciously takes us down south to Yanov Station, one of the most iconic places in the series. Not only does it look cool, but it also has some great implications for the lore. Yanov is separated by duty and freedom, two mortal enemies, but have learned to cohabitate this small station. Plus, it works as a sanctuary for other stalkers seeking to go farther into the zone. It also has a lot of characters that you can interact with, not only the faction leaders, but there are some other specialists like the Hunter Trapper in the basement and the Engineer Nitro on the first floor, plus the many randoms that need help, like Uncle Yar. Now, Uncle Yar is part of Freedom, but it seems like he does a little bit more stuff outside the Freedom book.
Looks like a quiet village. Unless we disturb the local residents.
He asks us if we can escort him to a small village, and yeah, I was not expecting this. Why don't zombies do this in the last games? It would have made Yantar so much easier. We get to this abandoned house to set up shop. Apparently Uncle Yar is somehow in deep with the mercenaries, and we have to take them out. This is something I absolutely love about COP. It blends the open world with these really tight directed story points or situations. This is one of those evolutions that you can definitely see throughout the trilogy. Like this part when I was a kid, I just blew through the zombies thinking they would attack me, but now doing it stealthily, you can see the difference.
Looks like I was right after all. Shoot those bastards down!
Also, look at the bullet spread. They did change it after Clear Sky, thank the Stalker gods. And that was easy with the zombies. After taking out the mercenary squad, we can ask Uncle Yar why he was being chased, and he has an interesting answer. He says that he overheard some mercenaries talking about an urgent order for a central lab in Pripyat. I wonder. We head back to Yanov Station, and if you're interested in learning about the factions, you can do a deep dive into their individual leaders, explaining their history and context to the player. You can also get some great explanations of the mutants by Trapper, but honestly, I would have loved for the encyclopedia from Shadow of Chernobyl to stay around. This is great world building, having it through an NPC character. And I would also like to bring back the more quote-unquote game-breaking explanation as well, but that's just me. Again, I was a very big fan of the encyclopedia. Our next stop might be a familiar facade. Once getting to what seems to be a reinforced science bunker, we meet a familiar faction, but only one of them. Novikov is part of Clear Sky and is one of the last remaining members since the rest got their heads melted at the CNPP, or so we think. He has an interesting line about his fellow faction friends, which is kind of backhanded, saying they were blind in the pursuit of a hazy goal. Yeah, that's straight up facts, screw Lebedev. But another thing this bunker has is one of the military personnel from the helicopters. who is hunkering down since he claims the zone is too dangerous to proceed to the evacuation point. We head to the evac area to find this door that I don't know if you can find a code for. If you can, please let me know in the comments below. You can also find this note from the rest of the military squad saying they went to position B-28 at the end of Pripyat. We still have 2 helicopters left and a question. How the heck are we supposed to get into that cursed city? On our way back to Yanov, we happen to find a group of stalkers, and not just any group. These guys are former Monolith, and if you've played the last 2 games, you know that Monolith do not mess around. Talking to Strider, their leader, you have this great conversation about the voice and them breaking free from it. There is a questline you can go through with them getting accepted to freedom, but for this playthrough I did not go about that, which definitely affected the ending. I'll be excited to see how this narrative of former Monolith soldiers continues in Stalker 2, and how or why certain Monolith guards are free of the voice and others still fight for it. Anyways, we do a side quest for the random bum in Yanov to cover his debt. I'm joking, of course, we'll get to him later, and go search for helicopter number 4. Now, if you know, you know, but the first time walking towards this helicopter, you'd be lying if you said you got through it unscathed.
Two bodies. Looks like they died in the crash. Everything of value has been looted and the onboard computer has been wiped clean. But the black box is still intact. Interesting. I reckon a decent technician will be able to extract the information on it and decode it.
Also, see what I mean about directed events? It doesn't have to be on rails, but they had a vision for what they wanted to show, and this is one of the more iconic moments from the franchise for me personally. Helicopter number 4 contains a black box that is undamaged, so we give it to our engineer technician Nitro, who tells us it will take some time to translate, or whatever. Which gives us a good moment to explore the zone, grab some artifacts, and kill some baddies. After the allotted time, we get the audio from the black box, and it gives us information that we already knew?
Stingray 4, come in. Come in, damn it! Stingray 4, do you read? Attention, Stingray Group. This is Stingray 1. The emergency evacuation position is B28. I repeat, B28.
So I guess it wasn't worth being blown up by all those mines after all. It starts raining and this atmosphere cannot be beat. It evokes a lot of emotions from me since it reminds me of my first true dystopian shooter, Fallout 3. Something about going through abandoned buildings that once held so much relevance and power is an awe-inspiring feeling, in all senses of that word. Stalker definitely provides this with so many establishments around the zone, and yet all of them left derelict and gone. It plays a huge part in the world and zone itself, and gives reason to the cause of the zone reclaiming the land for something one could call a beautiful revival. Especially going through this old Soviet plant. There was something so sinister yet peaceful about this place, except for the dogs and random bloodsucker body lying around. That was just plain creepy. Anyways, we find documents indicating there is an underground system between the plant and Pripyat, but it has been locked and will take some effort getting into. Damn, these Soviets are freaking wild, aren't they? Going further into the facility, we find even more documents indicating the underground after being sealed was filled with noxious gas for some reason. Then we get one of my personal favorite moments in my recent gaming memory.
Attention! Attention! An emission is about to hit! Find cover immediately!
I think this is what people want when they talk about the open world of Stalker and the elements that come with that. Yeah, experiencing a dog attack since they're running away from the emission that is changing the sky blood red, and you only see this because of the demolished ceiling, is why I love video games so much, and the Stalker series. This evokes the same emotions that I get from a powerful movie or art piece, maybe even more since I was the one controlling the character.
The mission is over. I hope everyone's okay. If you're...
We get to the next helicopter and figure out that the anomaly protection on the helicopter was still intact, but everything else was fried. We also find documents stating that the lock can be opened from the plant, but a generator is needed and will probably need some protection as well, since radioactive gas has been steeping there for God knows how long. With all the documents in order, we head back to Yanov Station and inform Nitro of our discoveries. After he has time to peruse the notes we collected, he thinks he'll be able not only to restore power, but open the lock as well. Yet he also warns us that we'll probably need to bring a couple of other stalkers with us for protection, and definitely get protection suits. The first guy we talk with about the mission is Zulu, who almost drinks us to death. I didn't really understand this part. For each piece of information, you have to take a shot of vodka. We pass out and then Zulu just agrees to the mission, and he'll train any fighters we bring him? I'm so confused. This portion of the game is a bit extended since you'll save up a lot of rubles to buy the Seva suits, but don't worry. It gives you opportunities to explore the zone more, talk to people, and gain some notoriety. One of the fun interactions you can have is with Professor Herman in the science bunker near Yanov. You can ask him all sorts of questions about his work, and one of the more interesting pieces of information he gives us is that he's visited Yantar, and specifically Sakharov's labs, which means that old son of a bitch is still there and alive. We also talk with Sokolov, the military guy who's scared of the zone, and convince him that he has a better chance at escaping this place if they come with us. Oh god, if he only knew what was in the underground. We also get the vagabond who owed money to the bandits to join us somehow, and after 3 hours of fetching artifacts and completing side quests, us four head to the plant and open the lock.
There we go. That's better.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Again, this is an iconic moment. What comes next is one of my favorite parts of the whole franchise. The underground is perfect, and it's not Metro, it's something else. You can see the elaborate methods that the Soviets used to transport whatever the hell they needed from civilian areas to their research plants and facilities. It tells so much about the story without saying a word. It's just what is. It goes back to something that if an avid listener is here, probably is screaming at me to stop saying it at this point, that Stalker feels like a lived-in world. I can plausibly see all of this being built for a purpose, and we're just some small character in a much larger narrative. We experience the zone through 3 sets of eyes, Strelok, Scars, and now the Majors. It's truly fantastical to have these moments with completely opposite characters and what it would mean to them. I also wonder if Strelok used these tunnels, not specifically this one, in order to get past the Scorcher. But for as awesome as I thought this place was, it was not awesome for my teammates, who got assaulted by Snorks, and god damn, these guys were vicious.
Zulu is down!
Yeah, I wasn't too angry about losing Zulu, but Vano's death hurt me emotionally. So it was just me and the military wussy. Sorry, after countless Snork attacks reminding me of Ravenholm and Half-Life 2, my stress levels were off the charts. Combine that with a dwindling supply of ammo and only mutants attacking us, I was thinking I might have been unprepared for this place. Wow, the scope of this underground is again breathtaking. Another door needs power, and once we hit the switch, we get attacked by Monolith soldiers. I thought this was very interesting since we had met the squad earlier that wasn't under the influence of the voice. Having to fight skilled Monolith fighters that were definitely sent there, not like they were just camping in the underground, made me think, why? Why send them? Who sent them? And for what purpose? Just to stop the Major from reaching Pripyat? Anyways, after barely defeating the Monolith foes and a ton of zombies throughout the smaller tunnel system, we finally reach our destination, Pripyat.
Put your weapons on the ground, now!
Don't shoot! I'm Lieutenant Sokolov, co-pilot of Stingray 4. I'm on my way to B-28, the emergency position.
I have information for Kowalski. Take me to him.
You know Kowalski?
Who are you? What's your business with the commander?
I'm Major Dektyrev, USS. I'm here to investigate the failure of Operation Fairway.
I knew it!
After being found by the squad of military, we make our way to their base in the laundromat and talk with Colonel Kowalski. The colonel informs us that half the military personnel within the mission died, and thinks that the helicopters were targeted somehow with ground-to-air weapons. He attributes it to the gauze rifle that Monolith soldiers used during the first assault of the CNPP. Also, fortuitously, a squad with said gauze rifle is around Pripyat, and we can hunt them down. Kowalski also can tell the Major more about the helicopters, but something isn't adding up, and we'll get to that later. For now, the Colonel just welcomes us to hell, and we get on our merry way to finding this item A-17 as they call it. At least they categorize their stuff. Anyways, we meet up with another military squad and try to set up an ambush for this Monolith squad carrying the gauze rifle. This was another great set piece, and I really enjoyed the mystery on how the Monolith forces knew about our ambush.
Let's check them out. Ice cover us. It's an ambush. Take cover.
We thank you, O Monolith, for revealing the cunning plans of your enemies to us. May your light shine down on the souls of the brave soldiers who gave their lives in service to your will. Onward, warriors of the Monolith.
After picking up the experimental gun and taking out the remaining Monolith soldiers, we get back to the Colonel to discover that the gun was damaged during the fight and is not working. The Colonel and Major get interrupted by a radio message from a recon unit in distress.
What the hell is that? Wait! We're all dead. Help! Someone help me! Get that thing away from me! No!
Sadly, we get to the location of the recon unit and find their bodies. Their lives won't be in vain though, since they gave coordinates of the Monolith positions and we're going to flush them out. Before attacking into the position, another emission occurs and we wait it out. This was pretty freaky since you can hear the Monolith guard talking. It's pretty faint, but he keeps saying, "We await your orders, O Monolith. Why can't we hear your voice, O Monolith?" So maybe they're just brainwashed fully and some like Strider aren't? We kill off the squad and get a great cutscene.
Kowalski, something strange is going on here. There were loads of monolith fighters inside the building. They were all in a trance and talking to a pile of trash. I examined this pile, and if you cut through the crap, it resembles a primitive antenna. It seems that someone talks to them through this antenna, and they believe it to be divine intervention.
This is all very strange. Someone's controlling these fanatics. We'll get back to this later.
I wonder who is actually controlling them, since they're saying they can't hear the voice. It does make me think of Straylock and how he might have not finished the job in the first game. That being killing off sea consciousness, since Monolith are only there for the protection of them and the interior of the CNPP. We get information that Cardin, one of the engineers on the beach ship back in Zaton, might have some way of fixing the experimental rifle. But when we get to him, this happens?
662? That's impossible.
Are you okay, Cardin? After Cardin awakes from what seems to be a drunken stupor, there is a lot more to this than I first thought. Cardin exclaims that seeing the rifle wasn't a dream, that he had previously worked on the project as well. Get this though, the date he gives for the ending of the project was 2004, 2 years before the zone appears due to sea consciousness. So Cardin definitely knows about the X-Labs and other facilities in the area. But Cardin can't fix the gun without the schematics, so he gives us his old key card that he somehow still has intact and tells us where to find the secret lab. Again, it's one of those amazing parts of open world games going back to areas previously explored. Now with a key that unlocks something new, there's probably a German word for it, but coming back to the plant now with a VSS, great armor, and some good artifacts, I couldn't help but feel accomplished. We enter the testing facility and encounter a ton of zombies. Oddly enough, have they just been chilling down here since 2004? I enjoyed the idea of weapons testing facility and the fact that the Soviets tried out so many random things around the zone. It's quite a feat, especially for whoever got this dicking contract. Sheesh. We go down the steps and oh boy. Pseudo-giants in this game hit even harder than Clear Sky, and that's saying something. This was a great arena to fight this guy in, and I like the area itself, this weapon testing facility. You can also see the damage the rifle causes. I just wish I had it for this fight. Using all our ingenuity, we hide underneath the tram to shoot this giant, but it doesn't want to die, so we just run from it. We enter the room with the schematics and get this cutscene.
The documents refer to a central laboratory designated X8, which could contain information about secret experiments conducted in the zone. Our analysts have been interested in this issue for quite some time.
Oh, very cool. So the military does know about the X-Labs, and we kind of figured that out since they attack Straylock after he breaches Lab X18 in Shadow of Chernobyl. But it's the first time that the Major gets confirmation on this. With the schematics in hand, we head back to Cardin to figure out if he can fix this powerful rifle. He gives us the whole wait a couple of hours for me to fix it deal, and we do a side quest to hunt down a unique creature called Pripyat, the Chimera. This was a great quest because it shows the necessities of stalkers and locals themselves. This Chimera has been hunting everybody, and they need it dealt with. I love the idea of hunting down big game and could totally see that being a bounty system in Stalker 2.
Crab says hello.
Fire!
It's over. Our job is done. Let's head back. Remember,
getting back to Cardin, he has successfully repaired the Gauss rifle and even has battery packs to charge it. I love this since it reminds me of Fallout 2's Gauss rifle and other original Fallout weapons that use batteries. It's just such a cool concept that we don't see a lot nowadays in games. Anyways, with the newly refurbished rifle, we head back to Kowalski and explain to him that the rifle could not have hit the 2 helicopters, which answers the question but doesn't answer how they were taken down. We're tasked with finding another of the military guys, and I get it. We're also military, but stop sending us out on random scouting patrols if they're just getting absolutely destroyed, or mentally incapacitated like this guy. Yeesh. Wait, why is my screen? Oh fuck.
Base, the sentry is dead. He was acting strange and attacked me. I also identified and eliminated a controller in that area.
Copy that, Major. The controller must have taken over the sentry. He was a good guy. That must have been what happened to the recon unit. The controller forced them to attack each other. Anyway, over and out.
Yeah, controllers always freak me out, and this was no exception. So we start heading over to where the documents told us of the central lab, Lab X8. Unfortunately, it looks like the power is also out on this generator. It's a trope hill I will die on in video games. Anyways, we do need to turn on the generator before we go down the elevator. With nighttime over us and walking through these abandoned buildings, I couldn't help but feel a little bit scared. Not just the fact that random rooms would have zombies in them or monolith soldiers, but there's a sense of dread. Like the military is getting picked off one by one, and yeah, you have an experimental rifle, but it's kind of ass. And then you're alone, going into top secret Soviet labs. Like, goddamn, I felt more confident in a Strelok or Scar than the Major. Anyways, after fighting up the floors of what became a pretty epic firefight, we enabled the generator and used the elevator. Good gosh, they know how to rustle my jimmies. Entering Lab X8 was one of those moments in the franchise that hits so hard because of what you've experienced in the last 2 games. It's a mixture of all the craziness of the X Labs and with the context of everything you've learned through your playtime. I can't fully explain it, and I hope you get to experience this by playing through the games yourself, or have already done so, but it was cathartic to say the least. And look who shows up. Lebedev. I love this little detail they show, and he definitely was holding back things from Scar. Anyways, we go through the lab and find multiple documents, all pertaining to experiments conducted throughout the zone. One of the documents incriminates Lebedev even more, that being the order of transfer. The order of transfer states that the transfer of the research team and all materials to another laboratory called X7 was ordered. That's a lab that we haven't been to, and with 18 being the highest number that we know of, there is a lot more still laying dormant. It also names Lebedev as one of the personnel overseeing the Noosphere influence experiments. I think it would be disingenuous to say Lebedev doesn't realize it was the Noosphere schism that caused all of the zone, but the way he talks about it in Clear Sky, it makes it seem he thinks it's beyond that. Maybe it is. We also have to fight these burrers, which are also unique to Call of Pripyat. Their experiments gone physically awry and take so many goddamn Gauss rifle shots. It's worth it since we get even more lore. One report on Lab X18, the one from Shadow of Chernobyl. This report talks about experiments on living beings following emissions. Maybe that was the weird childlike Zen creatures we found. With all the documents, we try to get out of the lab, but another spaghetti moment. I swear, these controllers just want to scare you. But I guess the Gauss rifle works on them pretty well. As we exit the lab, we get called in by the Colonel. He tells us a lot. The first half is stuff we already know, that we're FUBAR if we continue on this trajectory, so the Colonel tasks us to finding communication jammers that they think are around Pripyat. He also tells us to find a missing military personnel, but like, buddy, they're probably dead considering every other quest you've sent me on. Regardless, we head out to find the radio interference and the missing squad. We're told of the location interference after finding one of the bodies and stealthily go through the kindergarten building. We end up destroying what seemed to be a monolith-constructed antenna, but also find one of the squad locked in a refrigerator? Which I was not expecting. I also wasn't expecting cutting to this dialogue.
So what happened?
Well, it's a long story. I'll tell you another time.
Okay.
It's getting a little choppy when it comes to pacing at this point, and a lot of going back and forth, which, with subpar writing, no game is perfect.
Also, Gary headed for Yanov's station to restock. He asked me to tell you that he won't be back for a few days.
Gotcha.
We talk to Kowalski again and are informed that he got into contact with HQ, who tell us that we're going to need to hold the fort, so to speak. He also tells us that we can talk to our superiors soon, but we're interrupted by one of the grunts saying they've intercepted another radio signal, but this one is moving, and moving closer to their position. Kowalski thinks it's a monolith force and tells us to scout it out. After a bunch of running around following the signal, we figure out it's coming from the underground, and it's only one person. God, I love this part.
Don't shoot. I'm headed to the main entrance.
Who are you? My name is Strelok.
You're the Stalker who disabled the Scorcher?
Yes, but my plan didn't work. I came here to speak with your commanders. I have information that will allow the army to take control of the zone and destroy it.
And the mission is starting.
Come, let's talk inside.
Wow. For Strelok to come into the picture like this and have such an interesting take on the zone wishing to destroy it was exactly what the game's pacing needed. It's so abrupt and out of left field it just works perfectly for me, and it makes me question what the hell happened after the ending of SOC that Strelok wants to help the military, even to say his plan quote-unquote didn't work. I love how the military still don't know how the helicopters crashed, and Strelok immediately goes, "You guys don't know anomalies change after emissions? Are you stupid?" There was recently a great meme about this on the Stalker subreddit, which made me chuckle a lot. It fits this moment perfectly. You can even talk to Strelok after the cutscene, and he again doubles down on wanting to destroy the zone, which is odd considering what happens at the end of this game, but we're not there yet. We get another cutscene. This time it's with the Major contacting his superiors back at the spy base.
As of this moment, you are responsible for completing Operation Fairway. Kowalski and the Stingray squad will assist you. Report.
I've managed to acquire documents about experiments carried out in the zone. Furthermore, we've been contacted by a stalker who's been in the CNPP. His name is Strelok, and he's offered us his cooperation.
Roger. Accept his offer.
It interests me how they pause after hearing Strelok's name and then immediately say yes to his help. There seems to be something more at stake here. We also informed them that the helicopters were hit by anomalies and then the maps they used were useless. It also means that they've mapped out more recent anomalies and are sending in helicopters. And it has to happen now since we don't know when the next emission will be. Well, this is it. Escape from Pripyat. I love this final bit walking through the streets of Pripyat, fighting monolith and mutants alike. It is again one of those evolutions I was talking about before, where I could feel the influence of the last levels of Shadow of Chernobyl and Clear Sky in a much more epic and I guess open, if not linearly open, which sounds like an oxymoron, ending. It also makes me think about who's controlling all these mutant and monolith forces since there's such heavy resistance. And it looks to be coordinated, at least with all the Snorks going after you. I've talked about how Stalker has some of the best firefights out of any franchise, and again, this is another sequence that proves that. If you aren't nervous or tense with a side of excitement and determination to get out of this hellhole by now, then I don't know what game you've been playing. I don't know if this was intentional, but having this happen at nighttime was also such a boost to the atmosphere and the horror of the situation. Seeing hordes of snorks jumping from rooftops is something I won't forget easily, and we get such insane anomalies like the vine. We make it to the evacuation point, but the helicopters are under heavy fire from Monolith forces, and we need to take them out. Thank God they fixed the bullet damage and drop from clear sky, or this would have been painful to take out Monolith soldiers from far distances. We take out the last of the Monolith forces and get this notification. It took me a minute to actually say yes to this, since I didn't want to leave the zone, especially the rendition of what it was in Call of Pripyat. I also completely forgot that there were different endings, and without doing most of the side missions, I got the worst possible outcomes. But I do want to show what happens if you do complete all the side quests and everything, because I believe that these are the canon endings, and talking about Stalker 2 or how Call of Pripyat will go into Stalker 2, I think it's important to know what they were thinking. But wow, first the helicopters flying off into the moonlight, it's kind of melancholy. If you were playing this in 2009, that was it. That was the story. I guess the good endings make it a little bit more bearable, but seriously, I have so many questions about each game that I would have gone crazy over the last 15 years. Oh wait, I already did that with a franchise. Anyways, the good endings in COP, or what I would consider the canon endings, are as follows. The Major declines a desk job and goes back as a permanent observer, whatever that means. I hope we find him in Stalker 2. With the Major's findings about the X-Labs, the reports are filed top secret and are sealed away. Doesn't sound too good for Straylock destroying the zone, or for it to be understood more. We also get this blurb about the Gauss rifle, yet they don't actually manufacture more than a couple of test batches due to the high cost of ammunition. I'm sorry, this gun can pierce through metal, wouldn't you want at least a couple in a regiment? Then we have the deviating endings, like helping Beard out and making the Skadovsk the most popular bar in the zone and a sanctuary for free stalkers. If you completed all the duty and freedom quests, you're told that freedom manages to win over the favor of Yanov Station, and that duty tries to take it by force, but were quickly eliminated and scattered throughout the zone. It'll be interesting to see how duty regroups in Stalker 2. If you help the scientists in the bunker, they actually go on to cure a bunch of diseases and prompts funding from the Ministry of Education. That's a good silver lining. If you complete evacuation with the military personnel alive, Gary, who we don't talk about in this video since I barely spoke to him during this playthrough, sets up Pripyat as some sort of frontier. I'm also interested to see what that will be like in Stalker 2. Another thing I didn't touch on this playthrough was the Oasis, which without some mentions in some of the dialogue, went above my head during this time. The Mercenaries ending is ominous, stating that there's incursions into the zone specifically for X-Labs, and that's increased, cutting off USS operatives such as the Major. The last one we'll talk about is Straylock's ending, where it is said that he gave all the information away to the USS, who in turn created a research institute to study the zone, and Straylock will be the head of it, or scientific division. So what does this mean for Stalker 2? Will Straylock come back since the zone is expanding outside of the normal parameters? What has he been doing for all these years? There are a lot of loose ends, and if you're interested in all of them, check out the wiki, which has a page dedicated to the topic. I feel like I'm just listing off things at this point. And I want to get to my conclusion. Call of Pripyat is an insanely good sequel, yet it is still not Shadow Chernobyl. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I've gathered my evidence over the last month and have put in the time. Shadow Chernobyl is possibly one of my favorite games ever, but I never would have thought that if I didn't play both Clear Sky and COP. Call of Pripyat does so many things well, and I'm glad it expands into areas that it focuses on. COP does an excellent job balancing an open world with specific objectives and the events during traveling to these places. It's hard to build a story in an open world, and I think GSC did a good job when it came to breadcrumbing the player, maybe even better than it did for SOC. My only true criticisms of the game would be odd pacing sometimes, and transitions in dialogue or moments in the story that did not make sense or didn't feel right. Other than that, Call of Pripyat delivered in so many ways throughout my time with it that I would recommend it even if you hadn't played the first 2 games. It has so many secrets and puzzles to unlock and people and places to explore. We're also lucky that Stalker 2 is coming out in less than a month from now, because I don't think I could wait any longer for the answers that have come up in these 3 epic games. I am so thankful to the people that make these types of video games. They are true art and need to be on display. And I thank you, the person that listens to my opinions and experiences. I appreciate you more than you know, and I wish you all the best. And, as always, see you next time.